Hello, Lisa here with Terminally Curious. Today we're going to take a look at Git, and specifically GitHub Desktop and GitHub. These are great version control tools that allow us to track changes, especially as we're working on very complex projects like we do often in programming, okay, or large documentation projects, okay? So to get started, the first thing we're going to do is head to github.com, and this is where you would sign up for an account with GitHub. If you don't have one already, highly recommend it. So to get started, you just put in your email here and say sign up for GitHub. Now I already have an account. When you say sign up for GitHub, it's going to ask you for some additional information, like what you would like your username to be. And that has to be unique, okay? So you'll need a unique username, and then you'll need a password that adheres to their password requirements. I think it's numbers, letters, all the good stuff. And then they will send you an email for verification of that email. You'll put in the code and ta-da, you're in GitHub. So I'll just go ahead and sign in, and then we'll take a look at GitHub, take a little tour. All right, so when we first come in, this is what our dashboard will look like, okay? So there are a lot of bits and parts to GitHub, so many useful tools that we can use. They do have GitHub Copilot, which is kind of like a peer programming AI, very helpful. So if you're just getting started with a language, it can help you really nail down syntax. Just important to remember to take a look and make sure you can explain any code that the Copilot is helping you write. There is an introduction to GitHub, so further learning about how you can get around. GitHub Pages is a great tool that allows us to host a repository, which is kind of a workspace, okay, that hosts files. Traditionally, those repositories hold code, okay, but with GitHub Pages, we can have it hosted as a web page meant for public viewing, so very helpful. And then GitHub Actions has a whole bunch of possibilities in terms of automation, things like testing, lots of cool stuff you can do there. Okay. The part that's going to be most helpful to you, though, if you're just starting on your programming and tech journey, is working with an individual repository. So here I have a repository that we'll use down the road to take a look at making a portfolio with GitHub Pages. Okay. So this is a repository and what a repository would look like. These repositories can be created right here in the web interface, or they can be created locally on the machine where you do your programming using a tool called Git, okay? And then you can push them to be hosted here in the cloud with GitHub. Okay. First thing I see when I take a look at a repository is the title of the repository here. Up at the very top, I can see the repository name, but also the user or organization that owns that repository. Okay. And that is the full name of the repository, user or organization / and then the repository name. Okay. Here within the repository, I can tell this particular repository I forked from another user named Ivanka. Shout out to Ivanka. Thank you so much. What a fork is essentially a copy of a repository, but made by a different user or organization so that they can personalize it and move forward with it from there. Okay. Underneath that, we have information on the branch, and this is where the version control power starts to come into play. Okay, so by default, you have one branch, the master branch, okay? And this is what I think of as the production level branch. This is your live, stable, ready to be used, no errors encountered, public version of whatever project it is you're working on. If I have that, okay, but I decide I need to add additional functionality or address a bug, I would make a branch from this main branch, this master branch, so that I can get all the kinks ironed out in that new version of the software or project that I'm working on. Okay, so to create a new branch, you come under this drop down here, and you can create a branch just by typing its name in here. And then you can see all those different branches you have available and hop between them using this drop down. You can also create those branches in the local versions of the tools as you're programming. Okay, but that's why we create a branch. And then once we have all of our code worked out, there may come a time where we're ready for that change that we've made in that branch. We're ready for it to be a part of the main production stable version of the software. In order to do that, we essentially need to merge the branch into the master branch. In order to do that, we have pull requests up here. Okay? And that is the main workflow that you go through using Git or a version control tool. Okay? Now for our purposes, the main thing we really want to see is the code, right? The contents of these repositories. So depending on what branch you're in, okay, you'll see different code or files down here in different states. This particular repository only has the one branch, so this is the code we have available. These are all the files and folders that are in the project, in the repository for the master branch. Okay, now I like that I can hop in and take a look at these different files right here in the web version. I can even edit them. Very nice and powerful. As I'm looking at the code of a particular file, I can see over here an Explorer that lets me hop from file to file as I need to. And if I head back into code here, we'll take a look at what else we have on this kind of front landing page. Okay, now I am also able to add files directly to this branch here. By using the Add File dropdown, I can create a new file in the development environment built into GitHub, okay, code space, or I can upload files that I have developed on my local machine. Oftentimes what I want to do though is I've found code that's hosted by code that's a project that's hosted by someone on the web, okay, and I want to take a look at that code or work with it. In order to do that, I can use this nice big green code button, and the drop down here allows me to clone down or copy down to my local computer this code to do work with it. Now I have several different ways I can go about doing that. The simplest is just to download a zip file, extract it, and do stuff with the code, okay? Now, if I have Git on my local machine, Git is a command line interface, okay? So I can download or I can copy this command and then run it in my Git command line in order to clone down this file, this repository, okay? Another option we have is to put this URL in a tool like GitKraken, okay? Or GitHub Desktop is another GUI interface that sits on top of the Git command line so that it controls all that command line for us and allows us just to point and click to what we want to do, okay? Now GitHub Desktop is integrated right here directly, so if I wanted to open in GitHub Desktop, I'd just click on that button and then tell it to go ahead and clone down at a particular location. So let's say I wanted to grab some of those tools so that I'm able to work with version control on my local machine. What do I need to get started? Well, the first piece you're going to need is Git itself. So Git is a very small, thin, light piece of software that actually does the work, the heavy lifting of the version control process. What it does is through a series of hidden files, it tracks metadata on different versions and changes, okay, in the files that are within a particular folder or directory on your computer. Okay, it is free and open source. You just need to download it and install it for your computer. So if I head here, and I'll link to this page in the description of the video, this is where you can download Git, the application. By default, let's see, for me, it's recommending it sees I'm on a Windows computer, so it has that right up here in this monitor. But there are also downloads for Mac and tarballs for Linux. It should recommend to you the appropriate one that you need for your operating system. Now, that will install for you the command line interface. If you're comfortable in command line, awesome, you're set and ready to go. If not, then I would highly recommend you use GitHub Desktop if you're on a Windows machine. And to download that, you just head to desktop.github.com and you download that. That is the application that is integrated right here with GitHub. Okay. If you're on a Mac, then GitKraken is the preferred flavor. Okay. So you download GitKraken here, install it. They work very similarly. You can see here in the images Essentially what you do is it is a local interface that allows you to work with Git on your local machine and push and pull to those online repositories. Now, what I use frequently is the GitHub integration into VS Code. Okay, so I have Git and GitHub integrated into my VS Code. And so VS Code here has a version control, source control section right here. I can click on that and then I would be able to open a particular repository. I could clone a repository by providing the URL right here. So if I hop back over to my browser and grab that URL, and then I just put in here, clone the repository from this location. It's going to ask me where I want it. I'm just going to put it in my downloads for now. Make a new folder for it. And when I select the repository destination, I can see that it is cloning down that repository. That means it's copying all those files within that repository down to that folder. And then I can open the repository here, and I see its contents here on my local machine. Okay, I have the ability here in VS Code to make changes to the files, and then when I save the file with Git, it's kind of a multi-step save process. So I would save to the file, and then Git would recognize that there have been changes to that file in that repository. I would have the opportunity to commit those changes. Okay, when I commit those changes, it essentially saves it to the local repository, and then I can push those changes, save them to the cloud or GitHub version of the repository. If other users are doing that as well, I can also pull down changes that have been made to that repository on GitHub's website. Well, that should give you enough to get started, get downloaded Git itself, as well as some of the other tools, and then take a look at GitHub, play around with it a little bit. And in my next video, we'll take a look at how we can use GitHub to host a web page that will serve as the about page or portfolio for you or a project that you're interested in. If you found this helpful, please like and subscribe. I'd love to see you next time.